Hey everyone, this is Lindsay Cox again here. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for this informational webinar regarding the Build to Scale program. If you have not had an opportunity to answer the polling question on your screen, please go ahead and do so now. We're going to close that poll in just a moment. A couple of housekeeping items. We are going to try to use the Q&A feature for this webinar. So if you have a question while we're going through material, please type that in there. We may not have an opportunity, in fact, we probably won't because we have a lot of participation on this webinar today to get to every question, but we will try and follow up with you if you're able to enter that in. And just please try to keep those questions more general, more of a broad focus so that they contribute to the overall informational webinar that we're hosting today. If you have something very specific, there are contacts for you to follow up with. So with that, let's kick it off. So I'm going to end this polling real quick. Couple of interesting results from the polling. So we have 50% of you that are first-time applicants joining us today. Thank you guys so much for your interest in the program. And a lot of interest in all three challenges, but most notably the Venture Challenge. And we, again, will be covering all three challenges in depth today. So thank you for your responses. Today, we are here to talk about the Build to Scale program for 2020. Our Office Director, Craig Verstati, is going to give a brief overview of the program rebranding, as well as some historical context for you guys going forward. We'll also be covering the various competitions associated with the 2020 program and who we fund through those. And then we'll round out with information on the 2020 application process and close with some frequently asked questions we see, as well as that Q&A time. So with that, we are going to kick it off with some introductions. You guys kind of met me on the top of the hour. I'm Lindsay Cox, the program manager for the Build to Scale program here in the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I'm relatively new to the OIE team, but not new to tech-based economic development. I joined the team in late October, but actually came from a grantee organization, Launch Tennessee, where I've been working in tech-based economic development for the past 7 years. And my fun fact, we also like to start with fun facts here on the webinar, is that my husband and I had backyard chickens for a number of years, my favorite of which was named Cluck Norris. I'll turn it over to Craig for his intro.
Okay, I'm trying to think how to top that one this time. Hey, as I think the basics for me, hey folks, good afternoon or good morning to our West Coasters. I'm Craig Verstati, and it's been a real pleasure to work on this team and program for now going on 6 years. And as a former entrepreneur and VC myself, this is a real passion of mine, but maybe a fun fact is I'm also going on 16 years of public service. So I was a former Army officer, but that's a little bit boring. So how about this? I think one time when I was stationed in Hawaii, I was attacked by a tiger shark while spearfishing. A lot of people like to hear about that tiger shark story. So if you meet me at a conference, ask me about the tiger shark and I'll tell you. Emily.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Emily Miller. Excited to be here today. I joined the office about a year ago. It's been a really exciting process to go through the 2019 cycle and then be with the team here to redesign for the 2020 competition. We're really pumped. My fun fact is, in a former life, I was also an entrepreneur. And though I've never been attacked by a shark, I have been on Shark Tank before with my previous company. So really excited today to be with all of you.
Yeah, a lot of animal-related fun facts today.
The zinger, though, the Shark Tank, was hard to beat. Yeah. So I think what's neat about that, though, is all the team and so many people here at EDA really embrace the entrepreneurial mindset, and that is what the Build to Scale program is all about. Whether it's about building companies for scale, or building programs to scale across your regions. This new program, and the program redesign, I should say, embraces that entrepreneurial mindset, and we are certainly trying to practice what we preach. One of the reasons why we moved away from regional innovation strategies is because of the success of this industry. Regional innovation is no longer just led by universities or unique venture development organizations. We are moving into a technology-driven, innovation-driven economy, and there is an exciting new spectrum of players that are participating in this work. Whether you're building new initiatives, maybe starting at the ground floor, or you've been established in this industry and are scaling across your states and across your regions, we hope that the Build to Scale program can connect with your team and connects with your community, and we may be able to support your work as you move your communities and regions conditions forward in supporting innovation and entrepreneurship-based economic development. There's a couple other things that are new or different about the program. Obviously, the brand itself. It looks a little bit different, but I promise you this is the same spirit as the past 6 competitions. We did add a tiered funding level in the Venture Challenge, which we'll talk about soon, and the 3rd new competition, which we will address as well. Maybe most importantly, I really want to highlight a 2-phased, leaner application process, which we've added a concept proposal review phase, which I think will be alleviate a lot of pain on the front end for some folks as they work to figure out whether or not they're a competitive fit for this program. But the origin and the design of this program still remains the same. We were authorized through Section 27 of the Stevenson-Wilder Technology Act, which really focuses on driving regional innovation initiatives. This is what our core work has been focused on for the last 6 years, but I wanted to pause and use some of the new terminology in here to really highlight how we look at this work. And again, whether you're building or scaling your efforts, you need to be focused on building innovative businesses and scaling new products that are technology driven. We're different than our friends over at SBA or maybe USDA, where we're really focused on technology-enabled businesses. This is not for Main Street businesses, and this certainly isn't for individual entrepreneurs themselves. We are aimed at deploying resources toward intermediaries like business incubators, university centers, nonprofits of all types that are driving entrepreneurship support. For those of you that might not connect with words, here's a visual. If you look at the different ingredients that can drive a regional innovation system, right there in the red circle is our sweet spot. That is a general image. It is not entirely exclusive to all the things that we can support in this program, but those types of teams and programs are what we're trying to support through the Build to Scale program. We've been doing this since 2014. Collectively, we've made 224 investments. I think what's been fulfilling to see is the diversity of activities across the nation. I've really emphasized the continuum of work here between building and scaling, and we're seeing it in rural communities, in urban centers, in the north, in the south, in all corners of the U.S. But especially if you're from Wyoming, New Hampshire, or Delaware, please take note. You're our last 3 states. We'd love to see some more applications from your states. But I just want to highlight that there are some great project profiles for folks to take a look at on the link here in the historical page to get a better idea of the variety of strategies that we have supported over the years, and really, I think, highlights how there is no magic solution. It is all place-based, bottom-up for your unique needs. We've been able to do that thanks to some collective increased funding over the years. We've really scaled the program. This year, we'll award roughly $35 million across the 3 challenges in the Build to Scale portfolio. This would not be possible without some key partners and stakeholder supporters in the field. I want to give a quick shout out to teams like the State Science Technology Institute, the International Business Innovation Association, the Angel Capital Association, VentureWell, IEDC, NATO, and a number of other industry organizations that I'm sure I missed. But first and foremost, or most importantly, are our grantees. Our grantees have been great stewards of these resources and have really scaled impacts where you saw previously with over 14,000 jobs and close to $2 billion. We're getting closer to $2 billion in follow-on capital. Here at EDA, we support that with a national footprint. Your first line of support and resources at the state level in the Notice of Funding Opportunity and on our website is our list of economic development representatives. Each region, each regional office at EDA also has 1 or 2 specific reps that are expert on this type of work, on innovation and entrepreneurship. And then here in DC, you're hearing from us, the program office, who serve as program stewards and policy experts in this field. So again, your first line of support is at the state level, your respective EDR, and you may engage with us throughout the process depending on your questions and needs throughout this competition. But that is a lot of information. I know you're here to really talk or hear about the program itself. So Lindsay, why don't you help us dive into today's details?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much, Craig, for all of that great background information. I think that's really helpful in setting forth the context for the 2020 Build to Scale program. So the 2020 Build to Scale program is going to consist of the 3 challenges, and those are the Venture Challenge, which was previously known as the I-6, the Capital Challenge, which was previously known as Seed Fund Support, and then, as Craig mentioned, brand new for 2020, the Industry Challenge, which this year will be focused on the blue economy. But before we get into the details of all 3 of those challenges, I thought it would be helpful for us to take a minute to map out really what Build to Scale is and is not. So Build to Scale has an emphasis on the execution of strategies. While we do sometimes fund grants that have a planning or assessment stage, this rarely, if ever, expands beyond the first year. We are really about implementation here in this office. We are also, strictly speaking, not a construction grant program. Some costs associated with installation of equipment may be approved, but this, again, is really the exception, not the rule. We're really here to fund programmatic and operating expenses. We've already covered this in some of Craig's initial remarks, but via our legislation, we are really designed to help empower those scalable and tech-enabled businesses, and that is who we are designed to serve. We definitely appreciate what traditional small business brings, but again, there are other agencies focused on that, such as the Small Business Administration. And last but not least, we are available to any and all qualified stakeholders, whether those be located in rural or urban communities. So we are agnostic as far as your community location. And with that, I will turn it over to Emily to talk about who we are funding.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. This is a question we get quite a bit, and especially with our new rebranding. So we wanted to take a minute to address this and spell it out quite literally with a graphic here to kind of demonstrate. So given our program's emphasis on supporting high growth entrepreneurship, many folks have questions about who it is we fund. Build to Scale, we support intermediary support organizations. So those organizations that are building entrepreneurial ecosystems and thus supporting startups through their programming. In the next slide, I'll walk through the many forms those support organizations can take, but it's important to note that we do not directly fund companies, startups, entrepreneurs, or individuals. So this is a list literally taken straight from our Notice of Funding Opportunity, which I highly recommend all of you read in depth. But this is just to highlight that our eligible organizations take many different forms, from states to tribes to cities to nonprofits. The list kind of goes on. One thing I do want to highlight is that in our legislation, new this year is what's called the VDO, a Venture Development Organization. And that is simply a state or nonprofit that contributes to regional or sector-based economic prosperity by providing services that accelerate commercialization. So we've got some more wonky language in there, but you can definitely read more about it in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. And the last thing I'll highlight here is that we cannot, there is kind of a limit on the entities that we support in terms of if you are actively an I-6 Challenge grantee, you are not eligible to apply for the Venture Challenge, but you may be eligible for the Capital Challenge. We can walk through this and some of the FAQs at the end, but there are some kind of steps we take in the eligibility portion here that we'll hit on near the end of the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. So now we are going to dive into the 3 challenges. So starting first with the Venture Challenge, which again was formerly known as the I-6. It's designed to support entrepreneurship, innovation, and the acceleration of scalable companies within communities, regions, or a combination of regions. It can kind of be thought of as the ecosystem support challenge. So organizations will apply with strategies that support the building of scaling of innovation within their community. And we have allocated up to $26 million for the Venture Challenge. So Craig touched on that initial pot of money, which is 35, 26 of that has specifically been allocated for this program, or for this challenge, sorry. So to apply for the Venture Challenge, organizations should be supporting companies who are scalable by nature, challenging the status quo of established markets, commercializing technologies, and furthering job creations within their business. All of this information is also available in the 2020 Notice of Funding Opportunity. So I would encourage you to check that out if you're trying to decide if this is a good fit for you to apply for. Some quick examples of grantee activities, accelerator programs, mentor networks, market development, focus programming, and corporate connections. Again, these are just examples of activities that might be encompassed within an application or part of an organization's strategies. You don't have to have these components, they're just kind of commonly seen. But I will say once again, kind of note how these activities are focused on an entrepreneur or startup growing and scaling. So the Venture Challenge is a single competition, but with 2 funding levels. It is our only challenge that has these 2 separate funding levels, and that is new for this year. Organizations may only apply to one of the 2 levels. So we'll note the differences in between. Build applicants will be piloting a solution or implementing a solution they have seen be successful elsewhere. Kind of a key component here is that it is maybe new programmatic or new opportunity for that organization. With scale, those organizations will be scaling an existing initiative with proven impacts. They will also have a proven track record of successful programming deployment, and that is successful programming deployment within this innovation space, right? Again, just to repeat, applicants may only be applying to one funding level. The build is up to $600,000 over a 3-year period, and scale is $1.5 million over the 3-year period.
Lindsay, if I could jump in for a second and just highlight or emphasize perhaps that while we have increased the funding availability this year from prior years, which was just a single level up to $750,000, I'd really encourage people to take a look at this as an opportunity to pursue the resources that are best suited for your needs and your capacity. We run this program like investors. And to be blunt, what I'm saying is all because the north limit or the upper limit is now 1.5 million. Now, it does not mean that everyone should pursue the max in order to be most competitive. That is absolutely discouraged, and we've created these tiers so folks could pursue what is appropriate for their community and the right level of funding to maximize our ROI. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for expanding on that, Craig. And now Emily is going to talk about the Capital Challenge.
All right. The Capital Challenge was formerly known as the Seed Fund Support, and as you all know, a critical component to a thriving innovation ecosystem is access to risk capital for our entrepreneurs. And so the Capital Challenge is focused on increasing access to capital for communities, sectors, or regions. For this year, for 2020, we've got up to $5 million allocated to the Capital Challenge. The Capital Challenge, like the Venture Challenge, is also specific to operational and programmatic support, so think capacity building activities. The Capital Challenge can support the formation, launch, or scale of an actual investment fund, or it can be utilized for activities that will expand capital deployment in communities. So let's break that down. If you're forming, launching, or scaling an investment fund, you should be practicing equity-based investing, whether through traditional or hybrid models, or be supporting an initiative whose participants practice equity-based investing. And you should also be evaluating companies for high growth potential as a central factor of your investment strategy. If you're working to expand capital deployment, some examples of this could be the creation of an angel network or an investor training program. These programmatic activities are driving capital deployment within a community, region, or sector. Lastly, the Capital Challenge has a maximum funding of $300,000 over the 3-year grant period. Dollars, once again, cannot go directly to startups and must go to programmatic and operational activities, and funds should be used to increase access to capital where it is in short supply. We totally understand that not every startup should take equity-based capital, and loan programs are certainly great for small businesses, but this competition's mission is to expand access to equity-based or hybrid revenue models meant for startups who need this capital infusion to achieve hockey stick growth.
Great, thank you for that info, Emily. And with that, Craig is going to take us through the Industry Challenge.
Another new component of this year's program, the Industry Challenge is designed to support the same type of work as the Venture Challenge, but really embrace cross-agency collaboration and hopefully help drive some of our emerging industries forward towards growth. So this year's Industry Challenge pilot is in partnership with the Department of Energy, where we have collectively co-funded up to $4 million to support innovation in the blue economy. Now we're using perhaps a broader explanation or definition of the blue economy than normal, but it's because we want to create diversity to enable collaboration and cross-pollination. In this instance, the blue economy may normally be referred to as maritime innovation, something along the coast, but we absolutely are welcoming and encouraging proposals for freshwater innovation as well. So this could range from energy generation in marine environments to water irrigation and filtration innovation in the heartland. We know that there are a number of water capacity or management issues due to drier regions or certain regions that are flooding more along the Mississippi or in the Midwest. There are a lot of challenges across the nation, and we're finding more and more pockets of innovation in this blue economy. So what is available through this challenge is a $600,000 single funding level for the industry challenge, and communities can be doing both levels of not both levels, but both either building or scaling. So we've already received some questions here about this one. There is one funding level for this one only, slightly different than the venture challenge. And I briefly breezed past it already, but if we could go back one slide to highlight the types of activities. I talked about this in general form already, but again, think about the venture challenge here, but as it relates to this specific industry. Similar activities and similar outcomes, but exclusively focused on innovation in the blue economy.
Great, thanks.
All right, so now that you've heard about all three of our challenges, just for a quick housekeeping note. So we want to clarify, applicants can submit one application per challenge. So if you would like to submit an application for the Capital Challenge and the Venture Challenge, you are allowed to do that. But when you're applying to the Venture Challenge, you have to pick whether you will apply to the build or the scale funding level. So you cannot apply to both the build and scale funding level within the Venture Challenge.
Great, and now on to the exciting stuff, processing. So for 2020, we'll be introducing that two-phase application process. Phase one will be the concept proposal, which will be submitted in the form of a 10-slide deck. Phase two will be the full application, which has not changed in process from previous years. And we'll get into the actual concept proposal going forward. I do want to pause here for a minute and let you guys know that we will be having a separate webinar specific to the full application at a later date, which we have already scheduled. I'll share that information with you. But today we're going to focus in on that concept proposal since it is the first phase. So the concept proposal content is very specific. We have made a template available for your ease. We have a link to that later on in the presentation, but here is the concept proposal deck structure. We'll be requesting organization information, mission vision summary, your organizational approach, your collaboration and service area, your implementation strategy, an estimated budget, which should include match. We'll get into that later on. The team who's going to be working on that, and your outcomes. I do want to highlight, we have this content that is very specific, but there are no requirements regarding design and graphics usage. So you can use any type of background that you want. If you want to incorporate graphics in, that's fine. If you have a chart that better shows your budget or your implementation strategy, all of that is okay, but you do need to follow this 10-slide outline. Once submitted, concept proposals will be scored and you will receive either an encourage or discourage to apply. However, any organization may submit a full application regardless of whether they receive an encourage or a discourage. I think Craig touched on this really well at the top of the hour, but this is a great time to maybe if you get a discourage on your concept proposal, but you still want to move forward with applying to really think through that strategy and maybe refresh or improve some things you weren't quite sure about. You are also at this time required to show proof of your SAM registration or proof that you have at least started this process. We had a question at the top of the hour about the SAM registration that is associated with your organization. So you'll begin that process and show proof of that either via your actual SAM number or a screenshot that shows that you've initiated that process. So the template can be found on our website. That address is here. The due date for concept proposals is March 24th, and that's at 11:59 p.m. And unlike the full application, these will be submitted this year via email, and that email address is provided. I would encourage you, again, to view the full notice of funding opportunity, not just the slide template, to really get the full picture of what to prepare.
Awesome, thanks, Lindsay. So we're going to do a brief overview of the full application, but as she mentioned earlier in the webinar, we're actually going to be doing a separate webinar entirely dedicated to the full application to get into the weeds and the nuts and bolts of this. So we're not going to go too in-depth on it. The good news here is that full applications have largely remained unchanged from previous years, so they will still require a 10-page project narrative, a 4-page budget narrative, and the same additional supporting documents. All of these documents in depth can be found in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, so highly recommend reading that to get a better sense for what that requires. And of note, the full application will be submitted via grants.gov. So while the concept proposal is submitted via email, the full application will continue to be submitted through the grants.gov platform.
Yes, and I think this is also a great time to note that the concept proposal is a required component to unlocking the full application. So you must submit a concept proposal. Again, if you receive an encourage or a discourage, you may still go forward with the full application, but you must submit it. And we will be making the link to apply to the full application available through that concept proposal follow-up process. So again, required component to unlock the full application.
Great, and then this is an overview of our evaluation criteria. Another fantastic resource. We get this question a lot. How do we evaluate, how do we grade these concept proposals and these full applications? This is the answer. This is it, folks. It's not a special test. This is in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. This is a criteria that we use, everything from sustainability of your project to impacts, the budget and team, the partnerships that you bring forward, the target participants that your program will go after, and the proposed solution and your challenge and opportunity. So we've got these in depth in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. It's not a secret. This is really what we're looking for in both concept proposal and full application.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Now we're going to touch on budgets and budget narratives. So these items should be thought of holistically. And this will include your match and how it is discussed within your full application. Relevant to concept proposal, we do ask for a budget. It's a general budget. Again, it should include your match because that budget is a holistic document. And for the full application, you'll be asked for a budget and budget narrative. We have made a budget template available in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. It is optional. You are not required to use it. And again, that is specific to the full application. But for the concept proposal, you do need to have the one slide discussing your budget, the match. It's all holistic. It all goes together. If you're applying for $600,000 in build to scale funds, you would be running a $1.2 million initiative, and it should be discussing that holistically. So speaking of, that definitely involves those match dollars. This is kind of one of our favorite things to talk about and also something we get the most questions about. So at the time of full application, again, this is full application, not concept proposal, your match needs to be committed to the project. It needs to be available as needed, and it needs to be unencumbered. You will have to provide commitment letters for all of those matching dollars that state that when you apply for, when you submit your full application. At the time of your concept proposal, we would suggest that you have some pretty good ideas about where this match is going to come from. And again, you need to be presenting that holistic budget. And now some important upcoming due dates and other dates. The concept proposal, once again, is going to be due on March 24th. We are going to be hosting that full application webinar. So if you get the results of your concept proposal and decide to move forward, you'll want to participate in that. And that is going to be held on May 5th. And then the deadline for full applications, which again will be submitted via grants.gov, will be June 14th. So we've given you a lot of information. We just kind of want to summarize some of that here about this program. So people often ask us, what do you look for in proposals? There is truly no one size fits all. We really look for, we and the reviewers look for things that are designed for the specific community or region. They're bottom-up solutions generated by those communities and by yourselves. They enable those scaling businesses, and they're not trying to be something they're not. So they're not the Silicon Valley of insert word here. We've heard all of the various things from mountain range to plateau to anything. So we also have profiles of all of our past projects on our website. You can follow that link there. And that, you know, again, if you want to flip through those for some ideas or inspiration, those are all available. But what you will notice is that they are truly unique to the organizations who have applied. So with that, we're going to cover some commonly asked questions that we get in the office before we dive into the Q&A that you guys have been sending in. So first up, can I apply to both the venture and capital challenges? Can I apply to both the build and scale levels within the venture challenge? Emily, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, certainly. And we covered this a little bit earlier, but just to reiterate, so the first question, can I apply to both the venture and capital challenges? Yes, you may submit one concept proposal per challenge. To the second question, can I apply to both build and scale levels within the venture challenge? No, you may apply only to one funding level, so you must pick either build or scale when applying to the venture challenge.
Great. So next up, some of our neighbors are recent grantees. Will we be competitive if we apply this year? Craig, you want to take that one?
Yeah, this one is near and dear to me, is having seen this program scale over the last 6 years. Even before it was widely known, by year 2, we were getting this question. And I think at the heart of building regional economies is collaboration and not duplication. So understanding your organization's role in either how it's going to complement other teams in your region or complement, scale, and grow across the community is what I think you should focus on. A quick anecdote might be very straightforward. Example is we made an award in a major metro where there's a lot of innovation happening, and that team is focused on ag technology, and you are focused on a different type of technology or a different type of demographic for perhaps. There's likely a clear line of departure between what they are doing, the previous recipient, and what you may be proposing this year. Yes, absolutely, I'd encourage you to go forward. If, however, you saw someone receive an award and you're trying to duplicate exactly what they're doing so you could receive an award, that may not necessarily make sense. It might be best to just join them and see how you could complement and grow their work. My final thought on this, though, is we practice what we preach, and we are more forward-thinking as far as how to build innovation economies. And we are not batting 1,000 across our portfolio. There are some projects that didn't pan out how we wished they would have. And if you have gleaned some lessons from that project because of your local expertise and knowledge of the organization, or maybe you were even a past team member, bring that into this year's proposal. Help us understand what lessons were learned from failures, embrace those, and let's build upon those. Bring that entrepreneurial mindset. That is going to resonate with our reviewers.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. So next up, we're working hard to identify the best type of match for a strong proposal. What recommendations do you have? Do you prefer cash or in-kind? Emily, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So we get this question quite a bit. We have no preference between cash, in-kind, or a combination of the two. We see all sorts of match dollars come in. I think Lindsay's really hit the home run by saying that when you create your budget, think of it in a holistic manner that includes the matching funds. You know, be thoughtful and authentic to the project and how match dollars can fit within that project. One other question that I've kind of seen rolling in here is match for the most part means non-federal dollars. There are some rare instances in which federal dollars can be used, but for the most part, matching funds are non-federal. If you're unsure about some specifics around match, this is a great question to get in touch with either your state EDR, your innovation and entrepreneurship rep in a regional office, or with our headquarters if you have a really specific match question.
I'd also add on that the match is under the same regulations as any federal dollar. So look at, as we've said a couple times here, look at the entire budget in a holistic way, and where federal dollars, in this case our grants, can't be deployed to, cannot be deployed to support businesses directly. So you can't use our grants to invest in a business. We can only support the operations and technical support of programs. The same goes for a match. So a common occurrence here is we get a proposal for a venture challenge program, and they have some sort of annual prize to graduates of their accelerator. And maybe it's $25,000 to the 7 or 10 businesses that received acceleration services, and they want to use that as match toward our work. That would be ineligible match. And again, I agree with Emily. If you're not certain about this, it's worth a call with one of our team members.
Great. So we have seen this question coming through a lot. My organization is a for-profit entity. Can I apply for a grant? Craig, you want to take that one?
Yeah, let me jump in this one again. I've seen this more frequently as the program expands and word gets out. Again, we're not a grant program for businesses or startups directly. There are very, very few government programs that do that, actually. We mostly, and EDA exclusively, only works through those intermediary type organizations we highlighted on the top of the webinar. These are nonprofits, city governments, state governments, universities, HBCUs, community colleges, public-private partnerships. But there are a few, such as a public-private partnership, where a for-profit entity could be eligible. Another example, there are some for-profit economic development organizations that could be eligible, depending on your organization's structure, mission, governing documents, and what have you. So if you think you're one of the eligible entities, but are a for-profit, so like a economic development organization, please, we just highly encourage you to reach out to us to determine your eligibility before pursuing the program. If you are a straight, normal, clear, just startup working to create a new technology business, I can tell you flat out now, you are not eligible. So review that criteria and then engage us if you think you're eligible.
Awesome. We've got one last one in our FAQ section before we get into the live questions. My organization has a national footprint. Will I be competitive within this program? Craig, you want to start?
Oh boy. So this one too is a little more nuanced, and focusing on the brand, focusing on the statute and the information we provided today. Are you really best suited to drive a community-focused, bottom-up solution that is going to build a regional economy through scalable startups? There are a lot of great national organizations that we frequently partner with, whether it's to do knowledge sharing, research, and collaboration, but it is unique for a national organization to be able to pull off the nuanced, nitty-gritty community building at the local level. So I just focus on our desired activities and outcomes and get more familiar with the program to determine whether or not you'll be a good fit. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make that call. This is a national competition, and we will not tell you whether or not you're going to be competitive. We'll provide you background like this, but you're the only one who can determine whether or not your strategy, your team, and your community connections are best suited for this type of work.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. So with that, we are going to get into some user questions. We've got about 12 minutes left to cover stuff, and we've actually received a lot of questions in the Q&A. We're not going to be able to get to them all, but we'll get to the ones we can. So let's start out with Jeff's question. Please reiterate on the restriction on if you're a current I-6 recipient. So if you are currently an I-6 recipient, you have an active I-6 grant with us, you would not be eligible to apply for the Venture Challenge. However, you would be eligible to apply to the Capital Challenge or the Industry Challenge. So I think that succinctly answers that question.
One more piece of color. If your project is somehow closing out, though, before we make awards, you may be eligible. It just depends on your project period. So if you're close to closing it out, I'd suggest you contact us. As we're planning to make these awards, our timeline this year is late summer. So if you're uncertain about that, that's another, just get in touch with us and we'll talk on a one-on-one basis.
Great. Next up, we've got Anne, who is looking at the dates. March 24th is the proposal. When will a response come in if we're going to have the full application webinar on May 5th? So you will have the results prior to that May 5th deadline. We do not want to provide an exact date right now, but you will have them again before that May 5th deadline. And thank you for that question, Anne. We've got several kind of very specific questions here that we may not get to.
So one question we've received, can a for-profit entity be a partner with the applicant org in a proposed Venture Challenge project? The answer there is, it depends, but it is possible. I think Craig mentioned one of those avenues is through forming a public-private partnership. So if a for-profit entity partners with a public entity, so that would be a state or federal entity, so not a nonprofit, that is a possibility. Or if you are an EDO, an economic development organization, that is another potential possibility for the Venture Challenge. But again, that's best probably discussed getting in contact with us or some of our EDRs to discuss the nuances of that.
Awesome. All right, next up, we've got.
Yeah, is there any advantage for local applicant organizations to form partnerships with organizations in one state or across the region? Is it better to focus on partnerships in a single state or single EDA region? I will start off by stating this is a great example of one of the reasons why we moved away from regional innovation strategies. I think the emphasis on region and how it's defined and interpreted in various parts of the country varies greatly. And I think we really look for solutions that are best suited for your community. And if that means doing collaborations across a state boundary, fantastic. If it's all within one state, great. And if the collaborators happen to represent two different EDA regional offices, great. We're looking for solutions that fit your needs, not the needs of an artificial boundary governed by our organizational structure. Focus on your needs, folks, and I think you'll do right.
Awesome. So next up, we have when is state government support for the proposal required concept phase or full proposal phase. So somebody is obviously familiar with our program or has read the notice of funding opportunity, so kudos to you on that. State support is required at the full application phase. So you don't need to have that for the concept phase, but you will need that for full application. If folks are kind of scratching their heads as to what this means, again, please seek out our notice of funding opportunity for more details on that.
I saw one question about funding levels and the industry challenge, or maybe perhaps an emphasis on marine technologies. That is not the case. We hope to equally support both marine and freshwater innovation in the blue economy. In fact, that is why the program is co-funded $2 million from EDA and $2 million from Department of Energy. Take a look at the notice of funding opportunity where it has some deeper details into the types of commercialization interests in that particular challenge.
We've got a question in on match, which is do these require that minimum commitment of match for what you're applying? The simple answer is all of our competitions do require a one-to-one match. So for every dollar of federal money that you are requesting, you are to bring an equal amount in match. And we did go over that could be cash, in kind, or a combination of two, but it does require that one-to-one match.
Quick one on what's this project start dates. Folks should plan on starting the projects within a month to 2 months after our anticipated award. And I believe our award window is late summer. So I would anticipate your plan should reflect a fall start date. We're not going to hold your feet to the fire on whether or not it's October 1st versus October 15th, but do build in a timeline that generally reflects that window. And then if selected, if your project and your proposal is competitive, we'll work with you to determine that specific date for a project start. But bottom line, if you stay focused on that, it will not affect your competitiveness other than your ability to start and get a team moving.
All right, and we've got another question related to matching funds. So can matching funds be used for construction or property acquisition even though EDA can't fund that? The answer to that is no. So the matching dollars that you bring to the table will need to follow the same requirements that our dollars have. And again, those are not for construction. So unfortunately, no, you would not be able to match that with those construction-related costs. See if we got some new ones coming in.
Is a state too large to be considered a region? No, not at all. We have a number of projects that have collaborated across an entire state, and a number of them that are doing work across multiple states. Again, I wanted to jump on that question because I think it's something that we really want to drive home, that we're trying to support the unique needs of your community and your community to build a strong regional economy. It may be starting at a local level, or it may be scaling something at a state level. So the right solution looks very different for all players across the nation. Encourage you to pursue what you all need to drive your respective innovation economies.
Awesome.
All right, we've got a question. For the capital challenge, does the funds need to already be established and managing capital? The answer to that is no. We are able to fund projects all across the spectrum of growth, whether that's you're forming it, you're launching it, or you're scaling that fund. One thing I'll reiterate though is that we are not a planning grant, so it needs to be very execution focused. So if you are standing up a fund and you want to use these program dollars to help facilitate that, that's great. It doesn't have to already be in existence.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Emily. So we've got another question. Does specific feedback come with the concept proposal response recommendation? Unfortunately, we are unable to provide specific feedback. This is an open and live competition, so you will just receive that encourage, discourage response. So that is all we will be able to provide at that time.
We certainly welcome conversations after the competition to discuss ways to improve proposals that weren't selected. But again, that would be after the competition is closed.
Awesome. And we've got where can we find a list of past winners? Those are all available on our website. If you just search for EDA and OIE, you'll find us. If you look under historical, you will see all of our past projects listed there by year. We are actually working on a by state mapping tool, but that's unavailable right now. But again, you can find all that past project info on our website. And folks, we have received several questions about if the slides and a recording of this are going to be available. I am very happy to say that they are going to be available. We will link those on our website as early as maybe even this afternoon, but by tomorrow, close of business, you'll be able to access that there.
There's a question on partnership between a private and nonprofit with a for-profit. Is that eligible? I think what you're trying to get at is what defines a public-private partnership. We certainly allow public-private partnerships. However, we define a public entity as that being a organization of government. So that could be a state, a city, a municipality, a county, partnering with a private entity. Public entities, by their nature, are public, and thus a nonprofit could not be a part of a public-private partnership. That would be a nonprofit-private partnership, which is not an eligible partnership.
All right, and we're approaching the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to do 2 more questions.
All right, we've got a question. Is state government support for the proposal required for the venture and capital challenges? The answer is yes. If you are a nonprofit, an institute of higher education, a public-private partnership, a science or research park, a federal laboratory, an economic development organization, or a venture development organization, all of those entities require state support for your application. And there are more details on that in the notice of funding opportunity.
And I want to talk funding levels real quick. Again, emphasizing that the dollars available represent a window or a funding level, not a funding requirement. So in this case, for example, you should request whatever is needed and appropriate for your community's needs between $0 and $600,000 or $0 and $300,000, whatever that upper level limit is. You are not required to submit an application for the exact upper limit. It is exactly that, a limit, and we encourage people to be good stewards of federal dollars to maximize ROI. Maybe more bluntly, all because you are large enough to pursue a $1.5 million grant, which would be a $3 million initiative, including match, doesn't mean that you necessarily should. Be considerate around how you are going to maximize ROI, and these are going to, all projects, these funding levels are to support a 3-year project period. These are not awarded on an annual basis. So if you were awarded a grant at $750,000. You should not expect to receive that every year. It is for the entire tenure of your project period.
Awesome, thanks, Craig. And with that, we are a couple of minutes past the hour. We're going to close out this webinar for today. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon, for participating. Again, these materials will be available on our website after. I do know we had numerous questions that came in that we were not able to get to. We will try and follow up with you guys. You should also seek out that notice of funding opportunity document. I cannot overemphasize this enough. The answers which you seek are contained in that document. So please review that. We also have a list of contacts on our website for who you should follow up with if you do need to ask additional questions. So thank everyone so much. Thanks to our team for joining us, and look forward to receiving your concept proposals.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice afternoon.
Thanks.